You don't become the change in one moment. You become it through repeated small decisions.
We should always aim to
Be, do, and change together.
Welcome back to Be the Change. Today, we want to talk about something very real. What happens when becoming the change feels hard? Not inspiring, not exciting, not applauded, just hard. Even recording this podcast requires something from me. English is my third language. I live in an English-speaking country. Every time I sit behind this microphone, I know I may mispronounce words. I may not say things perfectly. But if I wait to feel fully confident, I may never speak. And being the change for me means speaking anyway. It means leading when opportunity comes. It means stepping forward even when I feel unfinished. Because I believe we are all under construction. None of us are fully formed. We are all becoming. And becoming is not always comfortable. Lara, have you ever had a moment where doing the right things feels harder than staying quiet?
For me, becoming hasn't always been loud. I'm usually very engaged, but in sensitive matters, I've often chosen restraint, observing, learning, and understanding the room. Sephora naturally leads with her voice, and I admire that. My path has sometimes been quieter, but it's always intentional. I've learned that not every space is ready for everything I carry, and that didn't make me smaller, it made me wiser. Every season, comfortable or not, has shaped the woman I am becoming. But there are moments when silence is no longer enough. Moments when I have to step forward even if it's hard. Starting this podcast is one of those moments. By nature, I prefer working behind the scenes. But through my professional journey, I've realized that sometimes I must step forward and use my voice. Saying yes to this podcast required courage. It meant stepping out of my comfort zone. But growth rarely happens in comfort. And sometimes being the change simply means showing up, speaking up, and taking one courageous step forward.
That's important. Because sometimes we don't stop being the change because we lack courage. We stop because we become tired. We become discouraged. We don't always see results. And we start wondering if stepping forward really makes a difference. And slowly, many people stop becoming. Not because they don't care, but because the journey feels heavy and silence starts to feel easier than continuing to step forward.
When we look at Jesus, we see someone who embodied change. But his path was not easy. He was misunderstood, rejected, betrayed by someone close to him. And yet he continued, not because it felt good, not because it was easy, but because he was anchored in who he was. He didn't react to opposition. He stayed aligned with purpose. And that is powerful. Because many of us abandon our becoming when it stops being comfortable.
That's so true. The moment it gets difficult, we question everything.
Yes, so let me ask you directly. When becoming the change gets hard, what do you usually do? Do you shrink? Do you delay? Do you doubt yourself?
I want to briefly share the story of Esther for context. Esther was a Jewish woman who became queen in Persia. Her people were under death threat. A decree has been signed that will destroy them. Esther had safety, she had influence, she had comfort. But stepping forward could cost her life. And in Esther chapter 4, when Mordecai challenges her, something shifts. She moves from passive comfort to active responsibility. And she says, if I perish, I perish. That wasn't fearlessness. It was clarity. She realized that comfort was not the purpose of a position. And I do think many of us are in positions, whether in our families or workplaces or ministries, where comfort is competing with calling. Lara, what do you think hold people back most? Fear, fatigue, or comfort?
Let's talk honestly. Some of you listening are not afraid. You're tired. Some of you are not unwilling. You're discouraged. Some of you believe in change. You just don't see progress. Romans 12 speaks about transformation through renewing the mind. Renewing the mind takes time. Transformation takes time. Becoming takes time. You don't become the change in one moment. You become it through repeated small decisions. So here's the real questions. Where are you tempted to stop becoming? Is it in your discipline, your prayer life, your forgiveness? Where does it feel easier to settle than to grow?
If becoming feels hard, it does not mean you are failing. It may mean you are stretching. If you feel tired, it does not mean you are weak. It may mean you are growing. If you feel unfinished, that is because we are all under construction. The goal is not to feel comfortable. The goal is to keep becoming. One honest decision, one aligned action, one small step forward. That is how change matures.
And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not quit.
Yes. Being the change is not about dramatic moments. It's about not giving up who you are becoming.
Before we close, we want to speak directly to you. If becoming the change feels heavy right now, if growth feels slow, if courage feels costly, you are not alone in that space. Every person who has ever lived in a meaningful life has stood in that tension.
Yeah. And that tension is not a sign that you are off track. It may be a sign that you are exactly where growth happens.
So here's a word of wisdom we want to leave with you. Do not measure your becoming by comfort. Measure it by alignment. Are you aligned with who you are called to be? Are you aligned with your values? Are you aligned with truth? Because comfort will fluctuate, but alignment produces peace.
You do not need to be perfect to be powerful. You do not need to be finished to begin. You do not need applause to continue. Stay in the process. Stay teachable. Stay courageous in small ways. Becoming the change is not one grand act. It is daily faithfulness. So, wherever you are listening from, in your car, in your home, on a walk, we invite you to take one small step this week. Not 10, one. One conversation, one decision, one act of integrity, one moment of courage. That is enough.
And when you feel tired, remember this. Progress is not always visible. Some of the deepest changes happen quietly.
Even when being the change may feel hard, we should always aim to be, do, and change together.